This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. My name is Connie Heath, and I am the Director of City Engagement at Smart Cities Council. I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm going to just speak real briefly and hand it over to our Managing Director, Philip Bain. I really want to thank you all for participating in this initial call that we're having, and to thank Rick Ralph for being the champion and pulling you all together so we can lay out some of the plans that we'd like to do to help Research Triangle really accelerate their data sharing. It really is a collaborative effort. We've done many events and workshops and collaborative engagements around the world, and we know that the bigger the team, the better, because we really will lean on you folks to pull in your stakeholders to help really move this whole process along the way. But I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder who's going to be speaking, and namely Rick and Philip. So without hesitation here, I hand you the guru at Smart Cities Council, Philip Bain, our Managing Director.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm in Virginia. Connie is in New Jersey. Rosie Smith. Rosie, raise your hand. She's our Director of Partnership Engagement. She's down in Port Orange, Florida. So we're all on the East Coast right now. So this is going to be relatively informal, and it's mostly intended to give everybody some background. And again, I want to extend my thanks to Rick also, because we've been working with Morrisville, I think, since last December, to try to frame this in a way that we thought was scalable. And it's really important for us that, and I'll just be really honest, I said this to Rick, and I think this is what got us going, was that we really didn't want to do a collaborative engagement around pilots. We wanted to do something that would be system-wide, that would help many different people in the community, and that other cities could replicate. So we really have some high standards, and we're really, quite excited and eager to announce the Research Triangle as a Readiness Challenge winner shortly, as soon as we all sort of come to terms and agree on what the steps are forward. Just to give you an overview, our goal is to invite cities to provide information and to learn from each other. The two KPIs that we really focus on are, in the United States, it takes about 4 years from sort of concept to actual implementation of a project. And we're actually lucky. Outside of the developed world, it can take 10 or 15. The other KPI that we really focus on is that most cities go to procurement with only about 30% of the solutions. So what you're seeing is that many good projects get lost in the mix. They don't get started. They fail early, or they take a lot of resources and fail late. And they don't really incorporate as many solutions as they could. And I'll come back to this point in a few minutes when I sort of compare a little bit of where I think we can go with this compared to a region like San Diego. We do have a planning platform called Smart Cities Activator. I'm not going to do a demo of that today, but we can do that at any time. It is a collaborative online planning platform that actually allows anybody who uses it to sort of kickstart a project. Morrisville Research Triangle would be joining a long list of winners. We've been doing this since 2016. We've had the state of Virginia, but Puerto Rico, but we've had many cities that you can see. We had cities from Canada, cities from Australia. We've had cities apply, like one of our finalists that actually Morrisville was a finalist also, was from Moscow. And so that gives you an idea of the scope and scale of what we're trying to do. So our current winners in the current Readiness Challenge are Nashville, Tennessee, Orange County, and Brisbane, Australia. Just to give you an idea of how successful these projects have been with Nashville, we're actually in the process of, they've asked us to come on board and help them with a grant about how to mitigate not only urban flooding, but also improve transportation in that region. Many of you are probably familiar with the DOT RAISE grant, and Nashville has some unique insights to that. Orange County, which has the second largest convention center in the United States, and as we all know, is a big entertainment area. We've been working with them on built environment to make buildings smart and healthy and also energy efficient. With Brisbane, we have a big data governance project, and that'll actually tie in a little bit with what we're talking about here. Just to give you a quick overview of sort of the research triangle has been through the discover process. We've been able to collect the data, see where we can go. Now we're going to start the planning process, and then down the road we'll exchange data with other cities so that we can help them. If you look at what we're doing, as I said, it takes like 4 years to actually get a project up and running, and we figure that if we can cut that down to 1 to 3 years, everybody wins. The city residents win. Those that are in the city themselves, the leaders, they win because they're meeting the needs of their city. Solution providers win because it goes to procurement quicker, and then the financing is generally less expensive. Now, working with Rick, we thought that what was really unique but opportunistic also was to look at transportation needs in the research triangle, but also look at how data could resolve some of those issues and improve data congestion and traffic. And Rick will go into a little bit more of that. And we're going to share this presentation with everybody, but what I wanted to show you was something that was really interesting. And San Diego ranked number 8 in the recent Streetlight 2020 U.S. Transportation Climate Index, which is somewhat focused on carbon emissions, energy efficiency, all those kinds of things. And they just published their 30-year regional transportation plan, and it's right now in public review. But what I wanted to show you was all the data sources they were using. And you'll notice how many of them are both survey-based, but also 10 plus years old in some cases, going back to 2010. But then a lot of them were surveys and a lot of them are dated. And this is, San Diego's been one of our winners. They are positive, they're forward-looking, but they really don't get how to solve a data problem or how to use data to solve a problem, which I think we can do with our with this project. They're using yesterday's data to solve tomorrow's problems. And this is particularly unique given if you think about where we were in 2010 and where we are in 2021. Let's not even talk about the COVID lockdown and changing transportation patterns there. Let's also talk about the introduction of EV and AV, the use of drones for delivery, the increase of traffic by Uber and Lyft, and also Amazon and others delivering goods to your home. I get my groceries delivered. So traffic patterns and transportation patterns and needs have really changed. And one of the questions here is going to be, what can we do to help the research triangle use data to solve problems? And when we were talking to Rick, one of the things that he told us was, our number one complaint from residents is traffic congestion. And so I really see an opportunity here to develop innovative data sharing approaches using best practices and data governance to solve tomorrow's problems with accurate current data. And that's what you're going to find us coming back to constantly is, what's the data that you have? How can we use it and how can we share it? And we've worked with the state of Virginia on some really innovative data governance, data sharing approaches. As a matter of fact, we probably would have the CDO of Virginia, Carlos Rivero, Chief Data Officer, talk about some of the data sharing things that they've instituted in Virginia, which I think would be really, an approach that we could take, because I think it's really about how do all these different jurisdictions and stakeholders share data. So before we have just a tentative schedule here, and more than willing to answer questions. But before I hand it off to Rick, what I wanted to say here, and if anybody wants to talk to Jeff Benavides in Orange County or Faye DeMassimo in Nashville, or another person would be Chris Castro in Orlando, all of these are been the leaders in our collaborative acceleration from winning cities. This is really iterative and feedback based. So, we set out certain sort of goals We'll set out certain goals before we launch, like, what are we trying to discover? What data are we trying to discover? Who do we want to speak? But the real key here is for all the participants and stakeholders to provide us feedback, because our job is really to be the resource to find the information you need to move forward. And so, do we need to bring in certain types of cities? Do we need to bring in certain types of solution providers? Do we need certain academic approaches? Do we need maybe San Diego to come in and tell us what they've done? Whatever. But the whole point here is that we have the ability to sort of convene and bring these experts in, and we really want you to be telling us throughout this process, what serves your needs. And then finally, we really do need a commitment from the stakeholders. We have found that the most successful collaborative accelerations are those where the stakeholders show up at the meetings. I mean, we try to do one like every other week at the same time so it can get on your schedule. It requires, in the first few sessions, we're going to require information from the stakeholders. But after that, you're really in listening and questioning mode. And so to a great extent, it's just a matter of showing up and asking the questions you would ask anybody in a meeting where you were talking about mobility, transportation, data sharing. And so the ask from the stakeholders is not significant, but that really makes a difference in terms of how successful we are. So this is about data mobility for data sharing. It's about how we can help you, how we iterate this process. The schedule is totally flexible. We're thinking that this would start sometime in July and end sometime in December. There's a Smart Connected City Conference in Raleigh, I think December 8th, being hosted by Riot. And while we haven't talked to Riot, that could be a date that we shoot for where we come together in a sort of in-person scoping workshop where we complete the work. So with that said, Rick, why don't you give a little bit of the vision and how you see this moving forward, and then we'll answer any questions, and then keep this webinar short for those who are listening to the recording.
Absolutely. Thank you, Philip. I want to first just thank everyone for taking time out today to join this webinar and hear a little bit about what our vision is. I know that most of those on the call have at least to some extent been involved in the previous data sharing efforts in the region, previously the stormwater, and then now most recently the park and greenway usage. But 2 years ago, when we were part of that group and we were first throwing around the first ideas of what to tackle as a region, we brought up, Danny and myself in Morrisville, about traffic and transportation and mobility, and how sharing that data could be beneficial to all of the communities around and all of our citizens. We didn't land on that at the time. We went for a different use case, but coming back around, we kind of have another opportunity to address this with the help of the Smart Cities Council. A great benefit to have them at this conversation to help us accelerate what our thoughts are around data sharing in the mobility space. This is something that I feel the region can benefit from. This is not something that is Morrisville specific. I know that we see this across all of our regions, whether it's Apex, Cary, Holly Springs, Raleigh, and it's just something that I think deserves a spot that's forefront of our minds and our discussions to start to see, okay, how do we start to address whether it be congestion or any kind of other mobility challenges. And the first place that we start with a lot of our smart city projects is really around data and the usefulness that it plays into moving forward and addressing challenges quickly. And I think this is one that all the folks on the call and those that aren't, as a region, we can seriously make an impact and make those data-driven decisions with the help of the Smart Cities Council and everyone that they bring to the table, can really make some headway on this topic. I know that it's something that each of us have our own transportation and mobility projects, but bringing it all together in a data sharing aspect, and why are we sharing this data? How do we share this data? And what are these end results? It gets a lot of folks talking. We've got interest from a lot of third parties as well, apart from the region, that have been interested in this conversation. So I'm excited to see where these sessions take us, where the discussion takes us, and where we can go as a region in data sharing. So I will pass it back over to Philip, but I do appreciate everyone's time. Again, this is collaborative. This is not something that Morrisville wants to make all the decisions on scheduling, on topics. We want this to be beneficial for everyone that's involved. So we welcome feedback, we welcome input on anything, and whether it's now or if you want to reach out to myself directly, feel free, and I will be happy to hear those.
Yeah, and Will and Connie and I are also available. As I said, we can schedule an activator demo, which is really just the project planning tool that everybody would share. I do think, of all the areas that we have seen recently where there is huge opportunity to really develop a sustainable, resilient vision for any community, it is around data sharing. I think COVID has taught us that those entities that can share data in and between themselves in a, using best practices, like how do you respect privacy? How do you respect, legal constraints? How do you expect individual data? A lot of these problems were solved by Virginia when it stood up a COVID dashboard that included both private hospital and public health data, and it did it in a week. And so you can imagine how those kinds of tools could be used to really help the region both strategize, but also respond to crises in real time. And so anyway, so I think we've become real advocates of this. And when Rick brought this up as a possibility, we thought it was a huge opportunity for all of us to collaborate. So if there are any questions, we'll take a couple of questions. I see there may be something in the chat, but again, I wanted to keep this partly short because others are listening in, and we really just want to, I think the deliverable here, Rick, is for those that want to participate to sign the non-binding MOU, so at least we know that there's a commitment to participate and provide insights, knowledge, and time. Would you agree, Rick? I think that's the deliverable out of this, right? To get everybody to sign on so that we can go forward and start planning and announcing.
Yeah, and that would kind of be what I wanted to also talk about as kind of our next steps is really getting folks on board. Obviously, we wanted everyone to have a chance to get a little more information. They've seen emails from me. They've been a part of the regional data sharing group, but wanted them to have a little more information from this session. So from this, yeah, I would like to see folks signing on and expressing that interest and providing that commitment to participate in this readiness cohort. So we can send that back out. I did send that out to the group. I did receive some feedback from a few folks, but anyone that's on the call that needs that, I can send that back to the group when I send the link to the recording. So anyone that is interested in committing to participate in this and finding it beneficial, just send that back my way.
Yeah, and we're more than willing to answer questions and modify. The approach. This is something that we've had some feedback, and again, the schedule can change, and even some of the objectives, if there's a sort of aggregate sense of we want to sort of go in this direction around this or something like that. Okay, so with that said, I think we're at about 25 minutes, Rick. So I think that's a good And we'll, when we send it over, the link and stuff, we'll synopsize it really, and people can use the presentation really just to quickly see what we reviewed.
That sounds great. And if there are no questions, I'm fine cutting it a few minutes short as well. So thank everyone again for their time, and we will send the information over as soon as we can, and appreciate your interest and your participation.
And Rick, I'm going to add a slide at the beginning and at the end saying the action item out of this is to sign the MOU or to reach out to you about answering questions so that people understand the whole purpose here.
Perfect.
Hey, Rick, can you hear me? This is Noah here, City of Raleigh. Everybody hear me okay?
Hey, Noah.
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for the invite. I just wanted to actually have a steering committee meeting. You mentioned something earlier about the Connected Communities conference. So we use Riot to kind of help coordinate the meeting, but it's actually hosted by NC State, the town of Cary, and the City of Raleigh. NC State and the City of Raleigh started the first Connected Communities conference, and that date is December 10th. I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, December 10th. We'll have it live in person. Love the networking opportunity. Would love to meet the team here too. I don't know everybody here on the call, but would love to really kind of talk about what the City of Raleigh is doing and some of the data around transportation. We're doing some really cool stuff with MITRE currently too on urbanization and using drones, and how does the city prepare for the future, kind of cutting edge technologies when it comes to transportation in the future. So excited about this, glad to be here, and thanks for everybody, for Rick, for putting this together, and look forward to more.
Hey, Noah, this is Phil, could you bring up, if you're going to have a steering committee, bring up that, we would like to, because I don't know what the procedure would be at NC State, we'd like to be able to host a couple of sessions around our work, which is really, all about the region and data mobility and stuff like that. And sort of show it off. But we also have, we try to have sort of a scoping session where we take the work and really sort of bring it down into something that's, implementable. But Connie, maybe you should reach out to Noah and just coordinate with him on that so that we can get on the schedule there, and anything we need to provide, we can provide them.
Sure, yeah, just reach out. Be glad to give you any information and talk about how we can work together on that. Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you, Noah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Noah.
Certainly.
Okay, so I think we're good, Rick. Like I said, I think it's mostly the presentation that we'll set it up so that people will understand the whole purpose and what we ask out of them, and then they don't even have to listen to us being long-winded.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you, Connie.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I got another meeting now.